All right, let's dive into something that can feel like a total black hole for any new chess player, the opening. You know, that first handful of moves where you're supposed to have this brilliant plan, but most of the time it just feels like you're guessing. And I bet I know how that feels.
You've been there, right? You make your first move, they reply, and boom, instant panic. What do I do now? Did I already mess up? If you've ever had that feeling, that little wave of dread on the second move, I want you to know you are definitely not alone.
And this quote right here from a player on Reddit just nails it. This isn't some rare, embarrassing secret. It's a problem basically everyone has when they're starting out. You know the rules, you want to get better, but the sheer number of openings feels like this mountain you just can't climb. And it's no wonder it feels that way. I mean, look at this list. We're talking about a whole universe of openings with hundreds of names. The hippopotamus defense? The creepy crawly formation? The bong cloud? It sounds more like a collection of weird animals than a serious strategy. When you're faced with all that, it's so tempting to just, well, do whatever. But there's a much better way. And this is the single most important idea we're going to talk about today. For you, as a beginner, the secret to a good opening isn't about memorizing 1,000 different lines. No way. It's about understanding a few simple, powerful principles that will guide you to a good position, no matter what your opponent does. This quote, which someone brilliantly posted on a chess forum, is the perfect mindset. Instead of trying to learn 10,000 different opening kicks, we're going to focus on practicing just one or two really, really well. And to do that, first, we need to completely change our idea of what we're trying to do in the opening.
Okay, so let's get this straight. Your goal in the opening is not to find some flashy checkmate in 8 moves. Forget that. Your goal is just to get through those first moves and end up in a decent middle game, one where your pieces are out, your king is safe, and you kind of know what you want to do next. That's it. That is a successful opening.
So how do we get there? It's pretty simple, actually. Just follow these 3 golden rules. Think of them as your compass. First, control the center. Fight for those 4 key squares in the middle of the board with your pawns. Second, develop your pieces. Get your knights and bishops off the back rank and into the action. And third, keep your kings safe, which 99% of the time just means castling early. If you do those 3 things, you are already doing great.
Now, to make things even simpler, we can take that whole crazy universe of openings and basically funnel it down into 2 main roads. As white, the best starting moves, and these are used by everyone from total beginners to world champions, are moving your king's pawn to e4 or moving your queen's pawn to d4.
And what's so fascinating is how these 2 little pawn moves create totally different kinds of games. Playing one e4 tends to blow the center right open. It leads to tactical, sharp, aggressive fights. It's a ton of fun, but you got to be on your toes. On the other hand, one d4 usually leads to slower, more strategic, more closed games. The pace is a little calmer, and it becomes more about understanding plans than calculating crazy tactics.
You know, this whole debate is nothing new. If we look back through chess history, you can see the trends shift. Back in the 1800s, it was all about that romantic, attacking, 1e4 style. It was way more popular. But as the game got more sophisticated, so did the strategy. By the middle of the 20th century, 1d4 had caught up, and players were developing these incredibly complex defenses to both moves. But through it all, these 2 have always been the main pillars of how to start a game of chess.
So we've got our principles, and we've got our choice between e4 or d4. But how do we actually pick an opening? Well, the best advice I've ever heard is to build yourself a simple, reliable opening house, a system you know inside and out, one where you feel comfortable and you know where all the furniture is supposed to go. And this brings us right back to that Bruce Lee idea. Pick one system for white and just stick with it. Play it again and again and again. You'll get to know it so much better, your confidence will shoot up, and you'll start to actually recognize the plans and ideas that come out of it. You're building real expertise, not just a bunch of random chess trivia. Okay, so let's say you're that aggressive player. You like the sound of those open, tactical games that come from starting with 1e4. What's a good house for you to build? You have got to try the Italian game. It's one of the oldest openings in the book, and there's a reason for that. It's literally the perfect example of our golden rules. You play e4 for the center. You develop your knight, Then you develop your bishop to its best square, where it puts immediate pressure on black's weakest spot. It's intuitive, it's strong, and it's a fantastic foundation to start with.
But hey, maybe that's not your style. Maybe you prefer a calmer, more strategic game. You've chosen the path of 1d4. So what's a solid, dependable system for you? Then I'd like to introduce you to the London system. The absolute beauty of the London is how reliable it is. You create this solid little pawn pyramid, and you develop your pieces to the same sensible squares pretty much every time. You don't have to memorize a ton of different responses. Instead, you just get to a solid position and can start thinking about your plan. It is the ultimate sturdy, all-weather opening house.
So we've got our principles, we've got a couple of solid recommendations, but it's so important to remember what comes next and to put the opening in its proper place. And this quote right here, this might be the most important piece of advice in this entire explainer. You could play the most perfect, beautiful opening, but at the beginner and intermediate level, games are almost always won or lost because of a simple mistake, a piece you left hanging, a fork you didn't see. That is where games are decided. So the main takeaway is this: the opening is just a bridge. It's not the final destination. Its only job is to get you across to the other side, to the middle game, with a position that you understand and feel okay about. So don't obsess over finding the perfect opening. Find a good enough one that follows the rules. And spend your energy on not blundering your queen. So try to think of the opening not like a script you have to memorize, but more like learning the first few words of a language. Once you know the basics, the principles, you can start to form your own sentences, tell your own stories. So the only real question is, what story are you going to tell on the board? Thanks for watching.